Next LOS to be discussed is forward rate agreement, and how we are going to think of this is forward rate agreement, or simply FRA, is forward contract where underlying asset is a loan. The long party on this contract will have right and obligation to. Generally, long will have what? Right and obligation to. In normal contracts, right and obligation to buy. In case, since the underlying asset here is loan, it will have right and obligation to borrow. And a simple memory trick here is that the B remains same. And on the short side, right and obligation to lend. That means the opposite side. Now tell me, if you are long, you have already signed a contract that you are going to borrow at the rate of 6%. Will you want interest rates to increase or decrease? You will want interest rate to increase because you will borrow at a cheaper rate, whereas the rates in the market would be higher. Which means what you can write here, long will benefit when interest rate increase, and short will benefit when interest rates decrease. Are we fine? Now there are certain conventions which are used for forward contracts. So forward contract would be quoted somewhat like this. Let's say 1 into 4 FRA. Okay, so how do you read this? You would say that maturity of the forward contract is 30 days, and underlying loan, that means after 30 days we can take a loan, underlying loan would be for 90 days. Okay, so this 30 days is actually 1 month, 90 days is 3 months. This 4 actually includes both 1 and 3. A 1/4 FRA means after 30 days we can take a loan for 90 days. If it is a 2/5 FRA, then after how many days? 60 days. We can take a loan for 90 days. So that loan maturity is to be decided as difference of these two, 2 and 5. Are we okay? Then next one, 3/6 FRA. So after 90 days we will take a loan for 90 days. And 5/3 FRA is not possible. The second term has to be bigger than the first term. Now we would also try to learn, slightly out of context but required here, the properties or features of LIBOR. LIBOR is London Interbank Offered Rate. So there are certain points I want you to write with respect to this. First point, it is a interbank lending rate. Interbank lending rate means one bank giving loan to another bank. Second, short term. Okay, so short term would be either 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or 180 or 360. Maximum is 360. It can also be 210, 270, generally in multiples of 30. Third, the currency of this LIBOR loan is US dollar. Fourth, the transaction has to be outside US, and therefore it is called as London interbank offered rate. Even though the currency is in US, the transaction has to be outside US. Okay, which means let's say Standard Chartered Bank in London giving loan to HSBC Singapore in US dollar for short term would be considered as a LIBOR loan. And the idea of having a transaction outside US, because in US, US Fed intervenes into interbanking markets, interbank lending markets. So if you want to have a true picture of what is the true demand and supply interaction, then you want to have a transaction which is outside US. That means outside the jurisdiction of US Fed. Are we fine here? Next, it is a add-on rate. What is the meaning of add-on rate? Correct. If you take a loan of 100, then an interest rate is 5%. After 1 year, you will have to pay 105. This is add-on rate. Opposite of this is discount rate. So if discount rate is 5%, then you would be given loan of 95 and you would be required to pay 100. That means a 5% discount would result into 5 divided by 95 as add-on rate. Are we fine? The next point, it uses 30 by 360 day convention. Seventh, different LIBOR rate exist. Different LIBORs exist for different maturities. Different LIBOR exists for different maturities. What does it mean? So let's say 30-day LIBOR rate is 6%. 60-day LIBOR rate is 8%. Now generally there isn't such a big difference, only for the example sake. And 90-day LIBOR rate, let us say, is 9%. We want to take a loan of $1 million US for 60 days. Then if you're taking a loan for 60 days, the rate that you have to use is 60-day LIBOR. And how would you calculate interest rate? So you will say 100,000 into 8% into 60 divided by 360. So that would give us how much? Whatever. Yeah, 13,333. Correct. 1.33%. So this would be the amount of interest. And last point, LIBOR never compounds. LIBOR never compounds. Okay, so in bracket, in TVM row, n should always be 1. Okay, so remember this, that on the exam, if you're doing for all the 3 levels, if you're doing calculations on LIBOR, and if you have put your n which is any value apart from 1, then you're going to get a wrong answer. Okay, because in LIBOR we never use the compounding. That's a convention with LIBOR. Are we fine with this? So let us go back to FRA now. So for FRA, there is a big formula available in your notes. But good news for you is you don't have to use that formula. You just have to use some simple logic. So let us say we are looking at a 3 by 5 FRA. It has a notional amount of 1 million and contract rate is 6%. Okay. Now a 3 by FRA means after 90 days we are going to take loan of how many days? 60 days. Okay. So when you are on this date, the day on which contract expired, you are going to take loan at 6%, but out of curiosity, you just ask the dealer what is the current 60-day rate, and current 60-day rate turned out to be, let us say, 9%. Now, if you have a long position on this contract, is that a profit or loss for you? Profit, because you are going to borrow at the rate of 6%, whereas everyone else in the market will borrow at 9%. So then how will we calculate this profit? We will say step number 1, we will calculate profit in percentage term. So that profit would simply be 3%. In step number 2, we will convert that to amount. So 3% into 1 million, that has to be 30,000. Correct? 3% into 1 million, 30,000. Then step number 3, we would have earned profit of 30,000 had we borrowed for entire 1 year. But we are going to borrow for how many days? 60 days. So 30,000 into 60 divided by 360. We want to unannualize this profit. So that would come out to be 5,000. And on the exam, 5,000 would be one of the 3 options, which would be a wrong option. Okay, because there is a step number 4. And what is step number 4? This 5,000 profit to you is going to come 60 days from today. Do you agree? It's like you're taking a loan at cheaper rate, you're giving a loan at higher rate. The profit will come to you at the maturity of the loan, not at the time you gave the loan. So the value of the contract today is when you discount that 5,000 backwards. So in step number 4, you would say 5,000 divided by 1 plus. Now when you discount, which rate should you use, 6% or 9%? Which rate should we use, 6% or 9%? We have to use the current market rate. Current market rate is what? 9%. So we will say 9% into 60 by 360. So that would be 5,000 divided by 1 plus 1.5%. So that would be 4926 or 5. How much? How much is that? 4926. Fine. So this is the value of the contract today. We do calculate price of FRA, but we calculate that at level 2. And price of FRA is nothing but the forward rate that we've learnt in fixed income. This is FRA is nothing but a forward rate. After 30 days or after 90 days, we are borrowing for 60 days. Same logic. Let's do one more example. Anything you're not being able to read? Rashmi? Done writing? Next example. Let us say we have a 1 by 4 FRA. Contract rate is 7%. Notional amount is 1 million. Now after 90 days, 30-day rate is 6%. We have a short position on this. After 30 days, 120-day rate is 5%. And after 30 days, a 90-day rate is 5.5%. Tell me which one of these 3 is relevant for us. The last one, because the contract is 30 days from now for a period of 90 days. So this is irrelevant for us. This is irrelevant. The relevant rate for us is 5.5%, which is after 30 days for 90 days. Okay. Now we are short. So first thing, write an obligation to lend. This time give loan. So we are going to give loan at what rate? 7%. Rate in the market 5.5. So is that a profit or loss? Profit, because we are giving loan at a higher rate. So in step number 1, we will calculate profit in percentage, 1.5%. In step number 2, we will convert that to amount. 1 million into 1.5% is 15,000. Step number 3, we will adjust that for time period. So 15,000 would have been profit had we given loan for entire period, but we are giving loan for only 90 days. So 90 divided by 360, so that would give us 3750. And is 3750 the answer? No, because there is a step number 4 where we will say 3750 divided by 1 plus, tell me which rate? 5.5 into 90 divided by 360. So 3728 is the answer. 2 right? Next LOS. Why forward and future prices differ? And to have a better understanding of this LOS, first we will have to spend some amount of time in understanding how the future contracts behave. Okay. So now let us say current spot price is 100. We have decided to enter into a 1 year forward contract position. Contract price was 110. As against entering into a forward, we can always enter into a future. Future is more standardized version of forward. The price would be same, 110. The only difference is that as the spot rate changes, the forward price will remain intact. It will never change. But as the spot rate will change, the future price will change as a function of changes or change in spot price. So if the spot price increases, future price will increase. If the spot price decreases, future price will decrease. Not by same magnitude, but it would be some function of spot price. Are we fine with this? And therefore, in future market we have this mechanism which is called as mark to market. So how does mark to market work? Mark to market. Let us say current future price is 100. Both the parties in their margin account would be required to deposit some amount. So that amount is decided by exchange. Let us say that amount turned out to be 40 and 40 on both the sides. In future contract, the amount that we deposit is considered as a security margin or security deposit. Now, by the end of the day, this future price has become 110. Future price became 110. What clearinghouse will do is, it will take out 10 rupees from shorts account and it will put that 10 rupees into longs account. Correct? So let us think from long perspective now. Originally he had a right to buy at 100. Now that future contract price itself changed, he has a right to buy at how much? 110. But even though he is buying at 110, 10 rupees are already given to him. So essentially he is still buying at 100, which means that profit was booked every day and it was put into respective account. Now from 110, if it becomes 120, then another 10 would be removed from shorts account and that 10 would be put into longs account. If from 120 it becomes 90, then 30 will be removed from longs account and 30 would be put into shorts account. And this is how this settlement will keep on happening on a day-to-day basis. When the margins reach below a specified level, that time the broker will give a call and he will require those parties to deposit additional margin. Future price is a function of spot price. If spot price increases, future also increases. And strictly going by the textbook formula, if spot is 100, future is 110, assuming RFR is 10%. Right? So next day if spot becomes 105, roughly future would be 115. This is derived from the formula. But every day as you're going forward, the n is reducing in the numerator. Should we go ahead? So now going back to LOS, why there would be a preference over forward and future? And the answer lies in correlation between interest rates and asset prices. Correlation between interest rates and asset prices. Okay. So think of an asset where the correlation is positive. If the asset price increased, a positive correlation means interest rate will also increase. And when the asset price will decrease, that time interest rate will also decrease. If you're an investor who want to take a long position, then you will have a preference for future contracts. Why? Because in future contract, when the asset price will increase, long will get extra amount deposited into his account, and that amount can be invested at higher rate. And here long has to deposit extra amount into his account. Long has to deposit extra amount into his account, and that amount he can borrow at a lower rate. Is that making sense? So opportunity cost of loss is lesser, but opportunity cost of profit is higher, and therefore preference would be for future contracts. But let us say the correlation is negative. So negative correlation now. Negative correlation means if the asset price increases, then interest rate decreases, and when the asset price decreases, that time interest rate increases. If an investor is willing to take a long position, now he's decided he wants to take a long position, then in this scenario he will have a preference for forward contracts, because if he decides to get into a future contract, that amount, excess amount he will deposit at a lower rate, and excess amount he will borrow at a higher rate. But in a forward contract, since there is no mark to market mechanism, he wouldn't have to incur that additional cost. Are we fine? But for short position it is exactly opposite. So we can summarize this by building a table. So this is now correlation, positive and negative. If an investor wants to take a long position, and if the correlation is positive, he will have a preference for futures. If the correlation is negative, he will have a preference for forwards. If he wants to take a short position, if the correlation is positive, he will have preference for forwards. If it is negative, he will have preference for futures. Yes. Especially if you are looking at contracts like future on banking index, where they exhibit substantially negative correlation. Isn't it? Whenever the interest rate decreases, the value of banking index will typically increase. And if they are exhibiting negative correlation, if you are long, what will happen is whenever interest rates are higher, you will be required to deposit additional margin. Whenever interest rates are lower, then that excess amount you will not excess, because banking index will increase, excess amount you'll get to invest only at lower rate. Following this, and this is more useful if you're a trader who takes short positions, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, then even a small fraction of cost becomes significantly more important. No, long or short, he will decide based on what is his outlook on the market. But whether he would prefer to go on future or forward, long or short, he will decide, that's his own outlook. But whether he should choose future or forward, that is a function of correlation of asset prices and interest rates.